Annyeonghaseyo, my fellow descendants, this is Wet. In this video, we're going to talk about why Yujin is one of the best characters in the First Descendant. And with the immortal builds I'm about to show you, Yujin is a beast, in my opinion. Now, your first question might be, can he solo bosses? The answer is, absolutely. And he can do it quite efficiently, as you can see in the background gameplay. He may not be able to solo bosses in 9 seconds like many other descendants, but as you can see, killing the Swamp Walker within 5 minutes is a very good time considering how much of a pain in the ass this boss can be. And soloing bosses is not Yujin's forte. Of course, you can do it faster with some adjustments, but I want to show you can do it. Having said that, then what is his forte? I'm glad you asked. Let's dive into it. Now, while Yujin can excel in solo contents like killing bosses, his strength is in team play. He's a descendant that whenever he shows up in a fight, others will rejoice because he's the one that can keep the team alive in order to complete the hardest contents in the game. From his life-saving abilities to his game-changing playstyle, Yujin is a force to be reckoned with. Talking about his abilities, let's take a quick look at them. The first skill is Solidarity Healing. To be honest, it's barely ever used because people are always running away, so it is a pain in the ass trying to chase them. But you can try to use it from time to time. However, I would not waste my time. Yujin's second skill is Restructure Serum. This can be useful depending upon the type of activities you are doing. Specifically, activities with a lot of enemies. In fact, there is a module for Yujin that is made for this skill to shine better. Other than that, this skill is not the highlight of Yujin's strength. His third ability is Stimulant Spray. This skill is pretty decent, especially for the 25% damage reduction it can provide to your teammates. However, this skill is most useful when you use it with the Blue Beetle. It's an ultimate scout rifle. Now, since it is a singular type of skill, when you have the Blue Beetle equipped, it gives you Purification, which removes debuffs on you. It's very good in boss fights like Deathstalker, for instance. His fourth skill, or his ultimate, is Hyper-Reactive Healing Ground. When you use it without any module modification, this skill puts you in an area that heals you and your allies. It also provides you Purification, which we already mentioned earlier, but also prevents you from getting debuffed. On top of that, you get Hyperactivity, which gives you a 23% firearm attack and a skill power increase of 34.5%. It's very good if your focus is on doing damage. In my experience, using this, you have to be stationary to take advantage of this. It's not a mobile skill, which is why you use Yujin's best Transcendent module, Duty and Sacrifice. But you will use the benefits that Hyperactive Healing Ground provides you. With Duty and Sacrifice, the fourth ability is the bread and butter of Yujin's superiority. To be honest, I think Duty and Sacrifice is the only Transcendent module that is worth using for Yujin, in my opinion. This is simply because this module can make you invincible. It's also designed to keep your team alive, but that is all dependent upon the type of team you are playing with. Some teams in those matchmaking activities are beyond salvation. No matter what you're trying to do, you're always going to have some people that show up with minimum defense and they're going to keep dying, and it's impossible to keep the fight alive. Lastly, his passives is Stop Overreacting. It's the fastest way to revive people in the game. That's as far as I know. It also gives you something called Additional Prescription, which is a max HP increase of 120%. All of that said, let's talk about the Immortal build and why you should try it. I have been testing this build for quite some time now, and I highly recommend you give it a try. It is similar to the ENZO Immortal build if you ever play that ENZO build. Though I would say the ENZO Immortal build is the superior option in my opinion. Let's go over the builds. I said builds because before you transition to the Immortal build, I highly recommend you try the HP build. That way you can familiarize yourself with the playstyle. So like I said guys earlier, so if you're going to transition to the shield build, you need to first make sure you familiarize yourself with an HP build. This is the HP build that I use. But let's go to the shield build first before we talk about the HP build. Now, this is what we're using, Duties and Sacrifice. Duty and Sacrifice is pretty much mandatory for Yujin. And what it does, it changes your fourth ability to Duty and Sacrifice. And it gives you an instant healing for not only yourself, but also for your teammates. And it fills up your HP bar and also your shield bar. And for movement, we're using the mid-air option, but you can use whichever one you want. Now, when it comes to Yujin, your focus should be on stacking up a lot of HP and also cooldown reduction. So, for cooldown reduction, we have Nimble Fingers, that's minus 25%. And we also have MP conversion, that's minus 36.5%. But you also lose minus 15% MP, which is no big deal. But you get the cooldown is most important. On top of that, we're also using Focus on Fusion. And that's an extra minus 6.1%. That helps a lot. But we also have a Fusion Skill Power modifier that goes well with our fourth ability. And with all this together, we have a minus 68.2% cooldown reduction. So this is good enough, but you can get it a lot better if you decide to use some of the marchers. Now for the health, we are using Stem Accelerant. That's the biggest health boost that you can get, but you also lose a minus 15% MP. And for more health multiplier, we also have the increased HP, which is basic for any build when it comes to HP. This is just a multiplier. So you need to add your components with this to actually get you a big HP pool. So those are the two that we are using for the health. Now, because it is a shield build and an immortal build, then you are using Overwhelming Shield. Overwhelming Shield puts you at 1 HP, which means if you lose all your shield, then you die. It's a high risk, high reward build, but it makes you tanky as hell. You have to try very hard to actually die. In any case, so that's the Overwhelming Shield, and we also add HP Conversion Shield. That gives you more shield multiplier, but you also lost some health, which is the reason why we are stacking a lot of health. All the health means more shield. So that's that. And to make sure we have more shield, we use Increased Shield. That gives you an additional 151.9% shield. That's why we got such a big shield bar. And that's why I said it's hard to die with this build. And then if you're playing in team, then you use Passionate Sponsor. That is going to help you with your firearm attack, which is your gun that you're going to use to do some DPS. And also you get some skill power modifier that helps you get more health when you use your ability. But if you are going to play solo like you saw me in the Swamp Walker fight, I use Shot Focus instead of Passionate Sponsor because you're not going to get much with Passionate Sponsor if you are playing solo. And then if you're playing a boss that's going to kill you with Toxic, then you use this. This in conjunction with your components will help you sustain yourself when it comes to those bosses like Swamp Walker or Deathstalker. Then you need to use this module right here. Now that is the build, the shield build. So let's take a quick look at the HP build. As you can see right here, those are pretty much the same module that we use for the shield build. The only difference is we're not using the Overwhelming Shield and we're also not using the HP conversion. But all the modules are pretty much the same. And we add the Maximize Conservation, which we can also add in the shield build, which I'm going to show you. And we also add Weighing the Scales. Those things would actually give you more shield and some skill cost reduction. That way you can use your skill more often. This Biosync Shield, although it is not mandatory, But I use it because I hate to see a red screen whenever you get hit and your shield breaks, then you have a red screen. So I use this, but whenever you pick up health, then you get a big shield back. And then also, I'm using auto immunity because this is very accessible for new players and also anybody else. That gives you incoming damage modifier, and also you get some HP recovery. Now that is basically it for this. Like I said, all the modules are pretty much the same in all the builds. Now what I was talking about, maximize conservation here, this is a flex socket. Now with maximize conservation, because any Yujin build can be hungry with MP, so you are not worried too much about not being able to use your skill because you're not going to run out of MP. So that's why we're using this. Now let's go to the components, and for our reactor, we are using a materialized phase reactor. That's because Yujin is a non-attribute descendant, so that's why we're using this one. But the most important thing about this is the skill cooldown and also the skill duration up. That's all there is to this one. And then for the components, as far as your auxiliary, make sure that you have a max HP. So max HP both side, and also MP recovery out of combat. This is a very good one. And so that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to stack up as much health as possible to combine with the HP modifier that I show you in the modules. And we stack up max HP on this as well, but the most mandatory thing here is the max MP. You cannot use this build without MP, so trying to get it as high as possible. And MP recovery in combat is very good. It's very basic when you are using a build, if you are using an MP build. And for our memory, we also stacking up max HP. But the rest of it is bonus. You can use whatever, but the max HP is the most important. And then for our processor, we also have max HP. And if you are going to fight bosses like Swamp Walker or Deathstalker, you need toxin resistance on there. The reason why toxin resistance is important is because if you don't have toxin resistance, you get shredded very easily. And to show you what I'm talking about, if we take off maximize conservation, and then we go to the root tile, and then we put this on there, save. And now if we go to a boss, let's say for instance, we go to Swamp Walker, this guy right here, as you can see, the recommendation is 7,800. And with the setup that we have, it puts us at 10,000. That means we meet the requirements, so we're not going to get shredded. That's why we cannot die when we're fighting this guy. Same thing with Deathstalker. If you go to Deathstalker, you're going to notice that the requirement is 10,000 toxin resistance. So we meet that requirement, so if we go fight Deathstalker, so we're not going to get shredded. So that's why we use those setup. Now that's all for all the builds, but if you were curious about the last tab, and it's because that we are experimenting with the proliferating allergy, and this one makes you take advantage of the second ability. And what this does, what this module does, it just explodes enemies, and if you want to experiment with this, you can go ahead, and this is the build, and you can take a screenshot and use it that way. So those are the builds. So there you have it, guys. Yujin is more than just a support descendant. He's a game changer. Whether you're going solo or to matchmaking activities, Yujin proves time and time and again why he's one of the best. What do you think? Were you on the fence about trying Yujin because he's been lackluster since the launch of the game? I can totally understand because I was on the fence as well. But now that the devs have made some adjustments to him, I highly recommend you give him a try. Especially with the Immortal build that I just showcased. Anyway, I hope this helps you guys out. Please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and any suggestion you might have will be most appreciative. See you guys in the next one. 감사합니다.